Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Sometimes things run in cycles. I just completed servicing one of the viewer's reels that came in pieces and parts. It was a Shimano TLD 25 star, and lo and behold I have another one that came in parts, and this one is the 965 International. Now I did a 965 International rebuild, and that's probably how this wound up coming into me. Somebody's seeing that I put it back together, and it looks like they started in an attempt to replace the idler gear, and I guess may have gotten hung up somewhere along the lines. At any rate, it was sent in to me to see if I can't go ahead and put this back together. So the gear side plate seems to be right. I'll go ahead and I will take this apart and service it. I'm not going to do it on this video because I've already done that. So go look into my library for the 965s, but I can just tell, just based on quick view here, there's a lot of dirt and grime and junk inside here. So that'll all be taken apart and cleaned up later. And then we'll just focus now. He's given me the side plate, the frame, spool, tensional piece. Now we're hoping that the rest of the pieces are in here, and the new idler gear is in here. So let's just assume that it is for a moment. And we've been running, talk about themes, we've been running on a couple of themes lately. One of them seems to be broken idler gears. I've had 3 or 4 of those come in. These are the plastic transition parts. They drive off the spool, so you have a back spool gear here. That's kind of hard to see it this way, but let's do it that way. They drive off the spool, which has a plastic as well. And what I'm doing here now is I'm just making sure that that plastic, the teeth from the plastic spool, are not broken. And this usually gets ripped up by the metal one over here. This is the metal drive off the worm gear, and I'm just going to check that while we're at it as well. But that metal gear and plastic, metal's going to win every time. And so what we have here is a problem with the thing getting hung up on the rocks usually, and a lot of times with braid, which won't break, the weakest link is going to break, and in that case it's usually the idler gear. So whatever the cause was for this, we have a new idler gear request, and then we'll just go ahead, as I mentioned, and we'll put the rest of it together. Now when replacing the idler gear, they took off the click assembly. That's this, and I will assume that between the two they got over their heads. And looking at this idler gear, I'm not seeing broken teeth. Oh, there we go. So inside here there's a whole bunch of stripped teeth. You'll see the difference if you compare the two. You got firm full through teeth there and broken teeth on the inside here. So something got hung up along the way, and that caused the level wind feature not to work, and as a result needs to be replaced. So let's get right on this. This simply slides over the stud here. Just going to put a little bit of lubrication on that. I'm going to use a Penn Precision reel grease for that. I'll just put a little bit on the post there. And if you get a project reel, let's say you're out at the flea market and you found one of these in a basket and you say, you know what, I think I can handle that, but I'm not sure. Go to the schematic. In this case, it's available from Scott's Bait and Tackle, now mysticparts.com. Go pull the schematic, check to see that you have all of the pieces that are needed, and that if any are missing, you know where to order them. Order them from pennparts.com, which again now is mysticparts.com. So we're going to go ahead and put that on, and then I'm going to check the schematic because I believe that little metal washer goes on top. It does. There's a little metal washer in the case that goes on top of the idler gear. So we'll go get that little metal washer out of there. Not always easy. And this is always the fun one for me, because when you go to reinstall it in the case, you've got to keep that little metal washer there on the post. So here's what I do typically. I'll take that off. Just I want to make sure that that was seated properly. I take a little bit of grease, kind of as a temporary glue, and I just put that grease on there so that when we go to reinstall, the piece doesn't slip too much as we don't put it in the case. And then I just want to center it with my carpenter's awl and just leave it there for now. Okay, on this side then, this is the click mechanism, and the click mechanism is going to intersect with the spool in the back here. These are the clickers here. So what will happen is when this is sitting properly, you'll see that the click mechanism, when engaged, will ride in that bigger clicker there, and when it's when it's off, then it'll ride to the side. Also notice that you have brakes on here. These things do move, and one of the problems that I notice with some reels that come in is that these brakes will come out. Let's see if we can move one out for you here. And it doesn't fit in the ring and the spool jams. So make sure when you reinstall this then that you have your brakes all pushed in before trying to do that. Okay, so then the next part up then is to set the clicker mechanism in place. That's going to go like this, but it's easier to do on the case side because you have to put that slot through there. I just wanted to show you how that's going to line up. So that's going to line up like this, where you have the two small screws. They're going to come in through the case, and then this one's going to go on top. So let's go grab two of those screws that were included in this. And you need a micro screwdriver for this piece. And I use just a cheap set of micro screwdrivers. I think I got these at Harbor Freight or somewhere. They weren't very expensive. And quite honestly, I don't use them a lot. But when I do need them, typically I will get them through Harbor Freight just because it's a limited investment and it's not a tool that I need in the daily use. Okay, so we're in on that side. We're going to take the cover then. I'm going to clean that bearing up a little bit. That bearing looks like it has a little bit of stuff on there. Maybe some old, yeah, it has some old grease on it. Let's just get that bearing out of there. The bearing is turning fine, so no worry about replacing it or anything like that. I'm going to use some Penn reel oil just to oil that bearing while we're doing this. Okay, then we'll get those two studs into that holes in the case. You want to make sure that you're in the approximate vicinity of the studs. You want to keep that little metal gear on there, little washer. And then if you can, just line up the holes with the studs. And this is a visual thing. There we go. We've pretty much got that. And that's it. So that's how you you merge the cage. Now we have two long screws and a short screw. Always fun. The two long screws are going into the click mechanism hole as such, and as I mentioned, you need a micro screwdriver for this. Hopefully we can see that on camera. And I like to get one in there before I go much further with anything. It's not an easy task, but I want to make sure that the assembly is held and that I don't have the side plate pop out. Alright, now we have the small screw that goes into the idler gear hole. So we're going to do the same thing. If you have real steady hands and small fingers, you probably do that without the pliers. In my case, I don't have that any longer, so I don't think I've ever had small hands. But all right, that one's a little bit tough on the pliers. So we're going to do that same trick we did with the washer. Just going to grab a little bit of reel grease to use as a glue. Try and hold the screw with that. Didn't have much luck with that. And then I'll go in this way, try and set that idler screw gear. Pretty much I've got it locked in there, so now I'll take the grease off the tip so I can see what the heck I'm doing. There we go, we're 2 for 3. I heard that lock. One more time, I'll go with the long needle nose pliers to get that last set screw in there. So patience is always a key with these. You don't want to rush anything. You want to make sure that you do what you can. Hand's probably in the way there. Tight. We're I'm going to come back and, as I mentioned, service it. The idea was to show you how to get that over the click mechanism and the idler gear replaced. You're going to make sure all of the brakes are down on the spool now. We're going to put the spool in then. Click sounds like it's in the on function. Now it's off. We've got a pawl assembly here. As I mentioned, I'm going to come back and I'm going to service, but right now I'm going to put a drop of oil into that pawl. Put the pawl in. Check the teeth because something killed that idler gear, but the teeth on the pawl seem okay. Go grab the carrier. You just have to be careful when you're putting the pawl in. You don't want the teeth to rest on the worm. You want to make sure that that it's flowing. There you go. I think we got it. This is the time where you want to put the side plate drive on, because you want to drive that worm gear. You want to make sure everything is working. And as I mentioned, we'll come back and rebuild the other one. So don't give up all the time on some of these. Make sure that you go pull a schematic, that you have a game plan, and that you take your time. And here we go. So we have a reel that is now functioning. The lever, the idler gear is working. It's pushing the line guide back and forth, and that part of the process is done. So all we want to do on this one then, since it's working, is we'll come back and put a little bit of grease onto that idler gear. And then, as I mentioned, I'm going to go back and rebuild the rest of this reel for the customer. So we've oiled the bearing. We just need to place a little bit of grease onto the idler gear teeth just to smooth that. You don't have to worry that we didn't get grease onto the metal gear. Putting grease onto the idler gear will transfer that over to the metal gear as part of the cycle. Okay, so this one's done in that regard, and I hope if you've had that problem, if you have a broken idler gear and you're trying to figure out how to make that side plate come together properly, that this video has been helpful to you, and I ask you to please stay tuned, subscribe. We always need more subscribers here. And watch as additional episodes include other issues with reels that customers are struggling with. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Thank you for viewing.